And thank you so much for staying with us. Time now for To The Point. And tonight on To The Point, we turn our focus on femicide. So let's take a look at what femicide is. Now, femicide is, generally understood to involve intentional murder of women simply because they are women, but broader definitions indicate that this also includes the killing of women and girls. Let's take a look at our next slide. Of course, that is by World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization says femicide is usually perpetrated by men. Let me take that again. World Health Organization says femicide is usually perpetrated by men, but sometimes female family members may be involved. Femicide differs from male homicide in specific ways. For example, most cases of femicide are committed by partners or ex-partners and involve ongoing abuse in the homes, threats or intimidation, sexual violence, or situations where women have less power or fewer resources than their partners. And I want us to pause there, okay? Because at this point, I want to engage my guests. And again, remember, the source for this is World Health Organization. I want to engage my guests who are already with me in studio. As you know by now, Audrey Mugeni, who is the co-founder of Femicide Count Kenya, Melvin Obola, Women Human Rights Defender, Program Lead and Digital Advocacy Associate at the Young Women's Leadership Institute, that is YWLI, and of course, Mr. Kefa Ojijo, the only gentleman in the room, not in the room, we have another one, yeah, but on set, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Karibuni sana, ladies and gentlemen.
Asante. Thank you.
Great. So I want to start with this statement here. Kefa, I want to engage you. Femicide is usually perpetrated by men, but sometimes female family members may be involved. This is not ours. This is WHO, okay? Your reaction to that?
It is true. I think if you check at the history of femicide, it's very funny because these are words drawn from the Latin magazine, okay? Femina and then cide, which means female, and then cide means kill. Ideally, it is to kill a female. I think it was first declared like a crime of hate by the House of Commons in the UK about 1907. Mm-hmm. And I think over time, because initially they thought that this was a crime perpetrated by men against women just because they're female. But over time, we have noticed that this crime can also be conducted by women against their fellow women. So it's becoming a broad aspect. Mm-hmm. That therefore it will beg the question that is it really killing women for the benefit of men alone? Or is it killing women even through their fellow women for a general wide benefit of other people? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think largely it is perpetrated by men, though we do say that
it is true.
Females...
Historically, yes. Okay. Even as we speak, yes, I think so. But you see right now, even men can still pursue using other women to pursue their mission to the exact women using a fellow women. Right. I think we've seen that trend going on. And the idea is probably to achieve motive, but not directly to be seen coming from the men. So there's a hidden form of it. If you look at the Brazilian system, how they pinpoint the femicide, they've noticed that almost 46% is being perpetrated through fellow women. And so it's a trend in the globe that's it's coming up. But I think we'll discuss it more as we go.
All right, and thank you for the history, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah? Melvin, your quick reaction to this? I don't know which one you want to point out from the 4 points.
So I'd say femicide is usually perpetrated by men. Actually, it's almost 90% of the femicide cases are usually men. And as you mentioned...
Perpetrated by men.
Yeah, perpetrated by men. And probably the 10% are now the examples of perpetrated through another person, or femicide that has happened because through a female person. Mm-hmm. But also it's not only about killing of women. It's also about killing of all diversities of women, women with disabilities, sexual minorities that identify as women, all diversity, including girls. It's all included on femicide. So yeah, I'd say it's not only women, people who identify as women. And it's different. It cannot be classified as homicide because this is the intentional killing of women. It's the perpetrator having that intention that they're killing the woman, you know, and they have it in their mind because you've seen even examples of Ivy, for example, the story of Ivy that happened. Yeah, she was hacked to death. The guy had the audacity to travel all the way to Eldoret to commit that crime without changing their mind.
Specifics. No.
Yes, yeah, I understand.
But you get the general picture, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Audrey, what do you say? You're the one with the numbers. We shall get to them, but what do you say?
I say that a femicide does not just become a femicide. So I'm going to allude to the very last point that says it involves ongoing abuse. I will not wake up one day and kill you. No, that's not what is going to happen. There's going to be abuse. I will chip at your self-esteem. I will hit you, I will slap you, I will threaten you, and it's going to be ongoing. And this can happen over a number of days, over a number of months, over a number of weeks. It can even happen over a number of years before I actually decide that, no, now it's time for you to die. And most of the times why it's called a femicide is that it's going to be planned out because, you know, it has been ongoing. And then eventually now it's going to turn into a death. And the woman or the girl is going to have died. Yes.
All right. I want to come back to you, Kefa, before we move on, because she did speak a little about femicide versus homicide. So in criminal law, are they the same? Are they different, femicide and homicide?
Apparently, our criminal laws does not capture the offense of femicide. We do not have it in the criminal statutes. However, if you read keenly on the penal code, as well as you also read on, there's a new, I mean, there's a very elaborate act that I think people normally just ignore, but it covers this in particular. It may not have defined it as femicide, but then it brings out the aspects of femicide in it. If you look at the protection against the, it's called the protection against the, protection against abuse by women and vulnerable people. It covers this. It's a very elaborate act on how it captures this. But ideally, legally, we are treating femicide in a broad aspect of murder, or what we call murder, or what we call the attempted murder. For instance, where the person has not died and been saved, or even in some situations, we just may take it as a form of homicide inside. But ideally, it is treated as a murder. That is the bottom line. So our criminal aspect does not have femicide in it, because the idea behind this is that you cannot have a legislation created based on a gender-based system. Therefore, it will beat the whole purpose in which the laws are embraced, which is non-discrimination and clarity.
Right.
So that is why it is just captured that as an aspect. However, there are international laws that talks about, if you look at the CEDAW Convention, for instance, talks about femicide. And also by dint of Article 2, 5, and 6 of the Constitution, we are required then now to apply those principles while interpreting such offenses. Yeah, so that is probably how it is embedded in our criminal statutes.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to the point and take a look at types and prevalence of femicide. So first up, as you can see, is intimate femicide. Now, this is a type of femicide committed by a current or former husband or boyfriend. Now, more than 35% of all murders of women globally are reported to be committed by an intimate partner. Only about 5% of all murders of men are committed by an intimate partner. Now, preliminary findings of an ongoing study by the WHO, that is the World Health Organization, and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, evidence shows that women killing their male intimate partners often act in self-defense following ongoing violence and intimidation. Again, the source is WHO. A quick reaction to this. Who do I start with? Audrey? The speed especially, I think. Only about 5% of all murders of men are committed by an intimate partner.
only about 5 murders of women. This is very true. Not all men are killed by their intimate partners. And you will find that even research is showing that for most men who have been killed by their intimate partners, the woman was probably protecting herself. There had been ongoing violence, and when this particular violence was happening, what happened now was that the woman now managed to kill the husband. So this statistic is actually saying things that I'm agreeing with. Yeah.
All right. Melvin, you engage a lot of women, especially under YWLI. Is this true? Sorry about that. Most women actually do it in a... Okay, so what am I doing? Carry on, Melvin. I'll work this out. Carry on. They do it in self-defense.
I'll agree to that. Most of the time, when an incident has happened that a woman has killed a man or a woman has killed an intimate partner, is usually because they're defending themselves from recurring violence that has been happening. And just as Audrey has said, violence is not a one-day thing. Like it doesn't happen just one day. It's manipulation of the mind. It's physical violence. It's them controlling your finances. It's them controlling how your body should be or how you should look like. It's them controlling how you look, how you dress, for example. And that affects a woman's self-esteem and awareness and even existence within their friends and even colleagues at work. So I would agree to that evidence. It's mostly on self-defense, but it's not all. Yeah.
Kefa, I don't want you to react to this. I want you to react to what Melvin has said, because I'm listening to her and it's them doing this, it's them doing this. And then she's referring to not you, Kefa, but men.
What we call androcide is also the intentional killing of men by women. And I think that has also been on the rise, as we see. You guys, the media houses, have been covering over the past days of men that are intentionally killed. We have the septic tank thing. Currently, we have a case ongoing of a gentleman who was working at the Nairobi hospital, killed by a lady intentionally. I think though there are defenses for murder, which is provocation, self-defense, necessity. Those are defenses, but we cannot pinpoint. I may not agree with that statistic at this point. We cannot pinpoint that all matters or majority of killing of men in the process is as a result of self-defense. Some are premeditated. Men also are victims of such circumstances, and men also go through this. But I think it is the historical, control of mind and idea that women have always been oppressed, and so the coverage of women's plight has always been on the highlights. And for that reason, I think most of these matters that affect men sometimes are hidden under the carpet. But they also go through the same system. The 2015 Act on Protection Against Violence on Women tried to also bring an element that all genders are subjected to being abused, which start at home, as she said. This is a process. And if you look at most of this, I always tell people that the most unstable witness you can have probably sometimes is a woman who is in love or a woman who is romantically involved with the accused person, because most of the time they will never maintain the evidence they have. It keeps shifting, and that is why it's even becoming harder for women sometimes to report these matters, because you file a case in court and then tomorrow you want to withdraw it because of your own feelings and connections. It's emotional manipulation that comes from within it. So it also even becomes hard to prosecute such matters, which arises from the internal or the private violations, the private disagreements between partners. So women sometimes are also, I can say, the cause of their own, because whereas the law empowers them, the 2015 Act on Prevention of the Crimes Against Women allows women to have that protection from the court, where you can have an absolute and interim protection. And most of these, from experience, what I have seen is that you find that a woman will file a case today, and they get the orders, even sometimes interim orders that now even goes internal, separates how they're staying in their house. This is the only act which allows even the court to get into the internal arrangement. But later they want to withdraw these matters because sometimes if the children are complaining, they want to see daddy, they want to do this, you see. So they do not hold to what they think probably is affecting them, but they look at the beyond, the beyond picture to just have a relationship that suffices, even if things are not working. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I feel they do not hold or they not stand for what is right so that they can fix the whole problem. It is this routine of falling back over when you have the leeway that sometimes will lead now to offense of femicide.
Right. Yeah. I think Audrey disagrees.
Yes, I do. I disagree. Women are not the cause of their own, they're not the cause of their own plights. No, we are not. One thing that I'd like... So? I say so because, again, research shows that before a woman actually leaves a violent relationship, she will try 10 times. It's at the 7th and the 10th time that she will actually leave. So you will leave the first time and you will go back, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th. It is at the 7th try that you might actually go. You might actually completely leave, but then you might go back again, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. These are the times that you're going to leave. It's not very easy to leave a manipulative relationship because I've said that it doesn't just start by beating you. I start by saying things like, you're never going to find somebody better than me. So I'll chip at your self-esteem, I'll chip at your psyche as a human being. And because I'm chipping at that, when I'm leaving, who's going to want me then? I'm not what I used to be. I'm something else. And I'll think about those things. I'm not what I used to be. Nobody else is going to love me. This is the only person who loves me. And maybe even my financial power has also been taken away. Mm-hmm. How am I going to support myself? How am I going to support this number of children that I have? Mm-hmm. And maybe I have 5, 4, 10 children by you. How am I going to support these children? The community itself, look at the society. We have placed a lot of emphasis on marriage, the importance of just staying together, the importance of family. Just look at society and how we have placed all these things together. You go to school, we are talking about families. It's important. Family is very important. Family is key. I'm not saying that it's not important. You go to the church is saying, the man is at the top of and then the woman, and then the children. There are all these things that are telling us family is important. And I'm walking out of this family. And yet, everything in me, everywhere I look, every advertisement I am looking at, I'm seeing beautiful families, I must be the problem. Then I'm the problem. And that's why I will go back and I will go back and I will go back. I am not the maker of my problems. The society is the maker of my problems. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right, Kefa, I will not engage because I don't think we're going to agree. Allow me, okay? Let's move on, yeah?
It's okay.
Okay, remember, we're looking at types and prevalence of femicide. We have just looked at intimate femicide. And the next is murders in the name of honor. And honor is in quotes, okay? Because honor-related murders involve a girl or a woman being killed by a male or female family member, Kefa, for an actual or assumed sexual or behavioral transgression, including adultery, sexual intercourse, or pregnancy outside marriage, or even for being raped. Often the perpetrators see this femicide as a way to protect family reputation. There are an estimated 5,000 murders in the name of honor each year worldwide, although this is believed to be an underestimate. Again, that is according to the World Health Organization. So let's get to numbers, which I always say, they do not lie, okay? Again, according to the United Nations Women, so in 2021, according to the UN Women, around 45,000 women and girls worldwide were killed by their intimate partners or other family members, including fathers, mothers, uncles, and brothers. This means that on average, more than 5 women or girls are killed every hour by someone in their own family. Let's pause there. Melvin. You didn't get to react to the other one, but you can we can have a quick reaction from you on this.
I think from this data, we get to see how urgent femicide is in the country. I understand it's not even mentioned in the penal code, for example, and it's not even clear. You said it's mentioned somehow, somewhere. It's not very clear that this is actually femicide. It will be grouped as homicide. So the numbers here, but these are just the only ones that have shown up, that have been on the limelight. Mm-hmm. There are others that are not even reported, others that they bury the victim and that's it. And so I'll also speak about how these numbers affect women and girls. We have done a research to understand how femicide affects women in Kenya. This is the first research we have done. And when you even look at the online database that anywhere that has been written on femicide, you will not find the accurate data in Kenya unless you see data from organizations such as Counting Dead Women, such as us, who we are trying to at least document these stories. Because we also don't have the exact numbers, it means that even on our advocacies, in terms of policy advocacy, we will not have the exact reference that we need to even talk to the policy makers. So, but I'm sure these are just like the few. There are so many women who are being killed every year. And even the UN, I think they have limitation in terms of capturing their data. We need to have a segregated data of diversities of women so that we understand how it affects all diversities of women. So that's my...
Okay.
Yeah.
Allow me to take a look at the next slide, Audrey, and then you will react to all of them in general, okay? So, more numbers, yeah? And this is again on a femicide, and Asia, according to the United Nations, women recorded the largest number of female intimate partner and family-related killings. That was in 2019, with an estimated 17,800 victims. This here breaks my heart because this is our continent, Africa, and we're second. 17,200, just a difference of 600, 7,500 in the Americas, 2,500 in Europe, and 300 in Oceania. That is according to UN Women Africa. We're number 2. Audrey, you wanted to say something from the previous slide.
I wanted to say something on the previous slide, because when we're talking about you started by talking about honor killings being one of the ways. Asia has the biggest number of femicide victims because they face the highest number of honor victims. So primarily victims that are coming from Muslim-led countries, you'll find a lot of honor killings there. But even things like infanticide of girls, you'll find this in India. I don't want to go to per country, but then you'll find this in India. So it gives it the largest victims. And then now we come to Africa, 17,200. Just as Melvin has said, the data is lacking. The data is lacking in Africa, and we are one of the largest. We are one of the largest continents that is facing femicides, but we do not have the data, and because of this, then we are not able to report as it needs to be reported when it comes to femicides. Because when you look for this data in Africa, you're not able to find it. Nobody's talking about it. Just as Ojijo has said, that it's not even in the Constitution. It's stated in a word. We need to be able to define femicide, talk about femicide, and give the research as it's going to be given. Because when we are able to do this, then we can clearly say that numbers do not lie, because we'll be able to see the numbers.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Kefa, we are due for a break in a minute, but let's get your quick reaction to this.
Because I'm trying to be careful because I'm surrounded by women, and this is a very sensitive topic here.
Let's be objective. I understand the situation you're in, though.
I love Brazil because probably it's the first Latin American country that has come with an express legislation on femicide. Brazil is the first country to have an express legislation on this, and so it's easier to use this as a case study on how they define and how they treat it and how they map it in their process of ascertaining this offense. I don't know where they collected the data for Africa, but the idea, or my opinion, is any crime that leads to killing, it's wrong in either way, whether it's androcide, whether it's femicide, whether it's the ordinary, killings or murder, it's wrong in either way. But I don't know if they've also done a research on the andro side or for the men, the other side we see. But what informs this, the reason why even Africa is coming to the rise, I think also is because of the exposure. Women have not yet been exposed fully to their potential and the limits of the rights and the options they have, even in a relationship. Most African countries, and I think, as she said, Muslim countries, still women are still suppressed in a certain way, that they do not have the leeway to ascertain to their rights. They do not know what to do if they leave out of a marriage, for instance. They do not know how to deal or how to, they've been taught and trained by society, you cannot even respond, or you cannot even have an issue, or maybe fight back to your husband. I think as a process of this, most of them, because of lack of that exposure and lack of understanding of their rights as a modern woman, still may contribute to this number we have in Africa, for instance.
Can I just jump in? Like, it's going to be really fast. Listen, like, I'm just going to say, this is just going to be really fast. It's not, it's not, with Africa, it's not that we are not exposed. There are Muslim countries in Africa, but then there are things like early child marriage. Early child marriage, you get a baby early, you're gonna die because you'll bleed to death. There is female genital mutilation. You are circumcised as a girl and you're giving birth, you're going to die. So these things are some of the things that actually lead to the numbers of deaths being high in Africa.
I think there are areas of exposure.
Oh, no. We need to take a break. Take a break.
It's gender-based violence. It's gender-based violence, it's not exposure. Gender-based violence.
Listening to them, so let's take that break. Stay with us. We come back with this conversation on To The Point. Stay with us.
Let's clear pimples. Step 1. Acne's Creamy Wash is a foamy and gentle cleanser that removes sebum and dirt in the pores. Step 2. Acne Soothing Toner maintains skin pH. Step 3. Acne Sealing Gel quickly clears pimple-causing bacteria. Mentholatum Acnes clears, cares, and helps prevent pimples. Roto.
Buda, Freebet imejipa. Wekelea uzito. Cheza MBAs. Bet bila stake. Predict the outcome of 8 pre-selected games and win up to 100,000 shillings. Only at maybets.com.
Radio 47. Tuko nawe mchana kutwa na usiku kucha. 101.8 Garissa. Tunavuma na bado.
My goodness, the conversation is heated in studio. We actually did not take a break ourselves. We carried on with the conversation. And Kefa, we're going to have another one on Androcide, and you're going to come, sindio? Because I think unaona kama tunaonea boy child.
Not really. But I just,
hey, my director Kevin agrees. Apana. We don't do that on To The Point. Fine, today is femicide. Next week, not next week, some other time to discuss Androcide. Kefa?
Not really. I just feel that, if we define femicide as a crime, it has 2 elements. Then one, it may be perpetrated by men, but on the other aspect, it can also be perpetrated by fellow women.
Which we said in the beginning.
The essence is that it's a killing of a woman. And the traditional idea was killing of a woman because they're just women. But we're now shifting from this. That now we have crimes of passion even coming in as an act of, provocation, which that's not killing a woman because she's a woman, but comes out as an act of provocation. For instance, the idea.
The reason.
Let him finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
The reason you look at the reasons as to why this woman was killed. The man will say things like, "She didn't cook my dinner. She didn't respond to my Ivy.
Yeah.
He said she didn't respond to my text. She took my money.
Her phone was
Her phone was off."
Now, let me tell you, legally.
Yeah, so I've died because I'm a woman.
Legally, evidential circumstances or evidential evidence as is stable is narrowing per circumstance. For instance, in that circumstance, was that act of not even cooking for this guy at that point contributed to what we call, contributed to a heat exchange or something that provoked him? You see, so that can be contributed or can be discussed in that element of the evidence. And so you cannot just say just a statement because he did not cook or did not do this, then led to the death. The evidential circumstance must be taken per act as it happened, that what was happening before that, it may not just be because she did not cook. There might be a lot of things probably that has happened in the process. And because of this was a chance that really made him have that opportunity, to act or to feel like now he cannot hold it back. Then he feels now extremely provoked, and then he acts.
But is there any justification for murder, regardless?
There's not justification. And that's why most of these offenses for femicide do not end up as murder. They're always reduced to what we call, because there's always a lack of manslaughter. So they always reduce to a manslaughter process instead of murder. Because normally there's no intention. Most of them, there's no intention. It starts as just a provocation or something exchange. And then in the heat, someone dies. I did not intend to kill you. But now what happens? It cannot be murder. Then it has to know because I did not have that intention. It's being reduced to, the manslaughter process. Most of them do not suffice as murder. And that is why I'm saying that however, we have those who want to kill, but people do not just wake up to kill women because they're women.
Right. Okay.
That cannot happen.
All right, Melvin, I'll give you a minute because I need us to wrap this up and get to the solutions. Yeah, because we've talked about the problem.
To 1 minute, just 1 minute. So, do you think, you are a legal practitioner? Yeah.
A certified one.
Yeah.
An advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Okay, yeah. So do you think that adding the term femicide, including the terminology femicide and defining it on the penal code would be a great start into having that conversation around, even when you are handling such cases, you'll be able to refer it to like a penal code, like this is femicide and not like attempted manslaughter or something like that.
The reason why nations are always very keen or careful not to have such terminologies in their laws is because of the principle of legislation. It requires that when you are legislating on laws, you do not have laws that are biased in terms of gender, in terms of religion or something. And that is why even if you look at the Sexual Offences Act, which ideally was created for women, you see the terminology is either men or... No, I'm telling you the intention why it was created. Ideally was to protection of the women, but you see the wording is for both men and women. The Sexual Offences Act, for instance. So the idea, even the CEDAW, the idea is that if you then decide to specifically say that this is an offense, other than affirmative action, that to create a specific offense against women, you will be limiting the whole idea of legislation of laws, because all offenses can be committed by any other person, irrespective of their gender. So that is why we give it one terminology as murder. For instance, because then we will also be having the androcide, for instance, the homicide.
You've mentioned Brazil. Why not Kenya?
I've mentioned the Brazil. And remember, our laws and Brazilian laws are different. What has been, if you look at the history...
Humans are the same, I think.
If you look at the history of the Latin American countries, they've had this idea, they have this long history of women being killed in the process of drugs, trafficking women, and that has become rampant. And I think that the only reason why they could then stop that, the abuse of women through the drug trafficking and drug-related matters, was to introduce a specific legislation to curb that, that menace.
Right.
And that is why they brought in homicide as specific. But here in Kenya, for instance, where we have, hardly would you just find people just killing women because they're women.
Oh, no. There are so many.
No.
But men are also being killed.
Let me interrupt. No. You need to listen to me now. We have 20 minutes left. We need to move on. Audrey, allow me. Let's just move on. So no, we still have more stats here, which are actually by you, Femicide Count Kenya, and then we need to get to the solutions, because that's what we're all about here on To The Point. So, let's come home now. Kenya. And according to Femicide Count Kenya, who is represented here by Audrey Mugeni, the period between 2019 and 2023 has seen an alarming trend of femicide in Kenya. On average, approximately 100 women and girls have fallen victim to this heinous crime every single year. It is important to note that these figures only represent cases that have been widely reported by the media or brought to light by civil society organizations. Now, Femicide Count Kenya has identified a shocking total of 119 femicide killings since the beginning of 2023, that is this year. And out of these 119 victims, listen to this, 21 lost their lives in the month of September alone. 21. That's September has how many days? 30, 31? Goodness, I was taught to count.
30 days.
30 days. That means it's like every single day of September we had
someone died.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's 21 people losing their lives in the month of September alone. To more chilling details now from Femicide Count Kenya, the youngest victim of femicide was a 4-year-old child. 4 years. The oldest was 87 years old, and the majority of femicides documented during this period involved children aged between 0 and 20 years. Let's take a look at our next slide here. Again, according to Femicide Count Kenya, which categorized perpetrators of femicide in the month of September alone. And these here are the numbers. Femicide perpetrated by others accounted for 29%. It gets even more shocking as intimate partners accounted for 33% and family members are at 38%. Lastly, names. You know, these are not just names. Remember, each name here represents a life. A life that was cut short. Each name here represents a family, and here they are. Now the list which I have here has actually 77 names. I mean, all these are names of women and girls who have been killed or who have, you know, gone through femicide, and this again is according to Femicide Count Kenya. But here are a few of them, 11 that you perhaps know of. Masika, you know, who passed on or lost her life in June 2011, Agnes Wanjiru 2012, Carol Ngumbu August 2017, Sharon Otieno, this one a lot of us relate with, unfortunately, 8th September 2018. Ivy Wangeshi Melvin did mention on the 9th of April 2019. And lastly, Jennifer Wambua, 15th March of 2021, Agnes Tirop, 15th October 2021, Edith Muthoni, 12th October 2021, Christine Mbani, 12th July 2021, Sheila Lumumba, 20th April 2022, and Stachbury Joanna, 13th July this year. More names which are not just names, these are lives, women who have died. Again, this is true, we have seen it on the media, but then again, according to Femicide Count Kenya. Can we talk about this before we move on to the solutions? Audrey?
And talk about it. For very many of these names, Sharon Otieno was the reason I started counting. Sharon Otieno, it was that same year that that Monica Kimani died. And I remember the outcry in the country was, what had they been up to? Sharon was sleeping with somebody's husband. This somebody's husband, it was her fault.
That's what people were saying.
Monica, people were saying, you know what, she must have been. She must have been a call girl. No. These were women's lives that had been lost. And I remember just sitting in conversation with my friends. And we went like, we need to do something about it. And as we were talking about it, one of my friends, Dr. Gathomi Gatwiri, we started counting dead women with her. We were like, let's start a count. Let's start it on Facebook. Let's put their names. Let's put the reasons why they've died. Let's start a count that we can, you know, share with the rest of Kenya and let people know that women are losing their lives for no apparent reason. And we started counting. That year alone, 2019 alone, we counted 109 deaths. In 2020, 2021 and 2022, the numbers were low. So they were 87, 82 and 80 in consecutively like that. These numbers were like this because do you know what was happening at that time? 2020 we had COVID. In 2021 there was still COVID. In 2022 there were elections. So nobody was talking about the deaths of women. Nobody cared that women were dying at that particular time. This was not something that was going to make the news. And then in 2023 the numbers are this high, and we estimate that these numbers are going to end at 150 because the way we are counting, we are realizing that it might end at 150. So now because there's nothing serious that is going on in the news, then we are able to talk about it. When Agnes Tirop died, I really liked it. I'm going to say that I liked the outcry that was in the country. You know, even the Sports Association going like, we need to do a training. That is the outcry that needs to go out for every single name that is happening here. People like Sheila Lumumba died because of who they were, because of their sexual orientation. That was the reason why they were dying. We need to have an outcry for all of these names. Yes, they were. When we have an outcry, then we are basically going to be able to do something about this, because women cannot just be dying like this. You know, it's something else. If I've been sick, in hospital, because when I started counting dead women, you know, I was asked, are you a witch? Why are you counting dead women? Are you a witch? But the reason why I was counting was because these are women who are being killed by people who are supposed to have loved them. They were being killed by their family members. You're being killed by your family member. This is somebody who's supposed to be loving you, but your partner or your ex-partner, you formed a family together, you started children together, but then you are killed because of this particular reason with somebody who's close to you. Something had to be said or something had to be done. We had to remember their names. We had to stop the killing of women. We have to stop the killing of young girls. We also have to stop the killing of children.
Such an emotive topic.
Yeah,
I can tell. Melvin, we were together on Friday, and we had that clip run of these ladies. You know, we had that voiceover, a narration of each and every case. There was an explanation of what happened or what led to their deaths. What comes to your mind when you see this? I know this is what you deal with every single day. I know we were supposed to get a friend to, you know, one of these people here, which did not happen, but you are the person that handles them or deals with them every single day on the ground. How is it like for you? And being a woman while at it?
I'd say even one of the key names that maybe missed out is Elizabeth, the human rights defender who was killed for defending the land rights.
That's true.
And for her, she was just working the same way someone can go and sell smoky or someone can go and work in a bank. She was working and she was killed. For me, reading these stories one by one, it's psychologically drains you. Looking at a country that doesn't even support you as a woman, your safety. Walking on the streets, I can tell you from where I stay to the place where I now want to take a matatu, you'd hear people calling you names. Oh, madam, unaringa, you know. You are just passing. You are not even doing anything. And such comments are hateful comments. Last week, I think last week or the previous week, we've seen hate crimes happening. We've seen Islamic groups organizing against sexual minorities in the countries. And those are things that cause femicide. Yes. We've seen groups organizing within themselves to challenge human rights defenders, women human rights defenders who are defending the rights of the people who are killed. Sheila Lumumba, you see the story of Sheila, the way they were killed, or even recognizing their sexual orientation and just saying Sheila Lumumba was killed because of their identity, because she was, because they were existing.
Let's not get into specifics, Melvin.
But dealing with these cases every day, it psychologically, it drains you mentally. It takes you into a position where unless you do something instantly, or maybe take a break, it reminds you of you could be the next one.
Right.
And not only you, every woman you see. So even any woman I see, my mind, I just see them like, what if this happens? What if they are walking to school and she gets raped and killed? Because that are some of the ways some women were killed. What if they were going to work and they couldn't get to work?
Right.
And they just disappear. So many human rights defenders have gone to exile because of speaking up against such cases. So even our safety as women human rights defenders out here is a concern to our country. It's an obligation for our government to protect us as citizens of this country.
Okay.
So what are they doing?
I'm interjecting. Yes, we'll get to that. What are they doing? I'm interjecting, Melvin, because we have 10 minutes, believe it or not, and I need us to talk solutions. Yeah, Kefa, is it time we adopted, you know, laws against femicide in the country? Specific. Belgium is among the latest countries in the world to adopt this in July 2023. Is it time we did so? In 2019, FIDA called for President Uhuru to declare femicide a national pandemic. You guys are doing the same. Melvin, is it time?
I think we're not there yet, but we have tried from where we're coming. I think now it's time. protection against the Gender-Based Violence or Domestic Violence Act was passed about 3 years ago, was intended to cure some of the things you're seeing here. And there have also been a few amendments in our laws. For instance, if you look at the Sexual Offences Act, there have been amendments. The Children Act, there have been serious amendments on abuse and even killing of children. And even the Penal Code, there are still a lot of proposals to amend, for instance, Section 201 and 202, Section 251, which is deemed as just a simple or normal assault, so that we should not have that issue of a normal assault. Like, what is a normal assault, for instance? So there have been those kind of agitation. I feel that guided by Article 25 of the Constitution, which then provides, the rights of human beings that cannot be derogated, cannot be limited. One of them is, among those rights are the rights, for people to be treated with dignity. The rights of habeas corpus, for instance. And that was a very important aspect which was brought in, because it informed the reason why it was to cure this aspect of disappearances. Women just disappear and you can't find them. They're killed, their bodies are being hidden somewhere, even for men. So the idea even to bring up the terminology of habeas corpus, to produce the body. That right now a body cannot just disappear, otherwise the Inspector General of the Police will be forced to produce that body to court so that the family can see their body, whether it's dead or alive. I think we are trying, but because of the international changes and the development of laws, we are not yet there, but we are trying. The conventions that we are also now adopting, courtesy of Article 25, are informing our progress as we move. If you look at the elements of CEDAW, there are clearly a lot of them are captured in the Sexual Offences Act, for instance. So no one should die for any circumstance. No one feels good. These are our sisters, these are our mothers. Okay. No one feels great if they lose a loved one. No one should die. But the only problem I always even have, and that is why I think they're agitating for that, is because that when these matters are even presented in court, for instance, nowhere will you find that this was killed because of her gender. There's always motives which are brought in as an evidence of fact. Right. So I think we should clearly maybe have that legislation that then define what threshold then do we define as a femicide? What limits do you then say that this was, specifically for the purpose of her being female, right, and not for other aspects?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I want us to talk evidence. I know you mentioned this earlier, but we've seen so many cases closed due to lack of evidence in court. Yeah. I have a few examples here. I'm not going to mention them, but there's a case of one XXS. X was found at City Mortuary. The police were unable to come up with conclusive evidence that showed who murdered her. The case was closed because of a lack of evidence. There's also another case of another lady, probably in her late 20s or early 30s. A lot happened, and the three suspects, XXX, were arrested and released on a 100,000 bond or 50,000 bail each. These are real examples, okay? I'm just not going to get into the specific details. But I mean, what type of evidence is needed?
You see, every offense has an ingredient or elements that must be ascertained. For instance, if you're going to ascertain the element of the offense of murder, there are two requirements that you must prove to the court. That there is what we call the mens rea and the actus reus, the act itself and then the intention to do that. That sadly, if one of the elements is missing, sadly, the offense of murder will not suffice. And that is why now they will either reduce it to a manslaughter or something of the sort. That is how laws are made. Sometimes I know they're unfair, but that is how they are made. So the element which is the threshold as defined by law may not be met, even if you people know that he killed him. But because they cannot prove intention, sadly that will not suffice. Right. So I think it's just how all laws are crafted. But specifically on the question of femicide, I think we should have a clear legislation or a clear definition within the law. We may not have a whole legislation, but a clear definition with its own ingredients or elements as well to what amounts to femicide, as opposed to other, nexus or other motives that may arise to the killing of a female.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I know the government has, certain shelters and safe houses that have been named under the essential services that provide services around the clock. There's a GBV free toll number that's available for assistance. But what more needs to be done? We have 4 minutes, guys, believe it or not.
What more needs to be done? We need to have, we have very good laws in Kenya. but they also need to be implemented, like they need to be implemented much better. We need to be able to protect and safeguard, especially girls and young women. They need to be protected, they need to be safeguarded. A few of the cases that happened in 2021 were by two men. One who was killing, those one who was killing young girls, and there's another one who was killing boys. We don't do a background check for people who are working with vulnerable people. We don't do background checks. Background checks need to be done so that we can be able to ascertain, is this person supposed to be working with young girls, supposed to be working with children? Then we'll make sure that children are not dying. But then we also need to have conversations of what gender-based violence is. What are the forms of violence? How are we going to be able to say that these are the forms of violence that can be, that you'll be able to mention that this is a form of violence, and who are we going to be reporting to? We also need to be able to let people say that I'm facing this form of violence, I need to report to this particular person.
Right.
Yes.
Melvin, what more needs to be done? What does the government, the powers that we need to do?
I'll do this fast, very quick. First, our government needs to do more on creating awareness, first, of the different types of violence, including femicide, with the law enforcement, with the parliamentarians, because those are politicians, they're not lawmakers, as you know. Apart from that, that's like a preventive measure. Let's have these conversations in understanding that there's existence of violence and there's existence of femicide. Apart from that, in terms of the lack of data, our government needs to set an observatory where we will have a center that, if you, for example, want to have data on femicide in Kenya, we'll just go to that it should be online space and get the information, and not just the general WHO data or data that has been done by CSOs. And apart from that, we also have to we need to have early preventive interventions within our communities. This existence of these policies, the Sexual Offences Act, that our communities need to understand that there are policies that exist to protect them. And if they're not, then they're also able to speak up and demand for their rights based on those policies and legislations.
And you're still calling for the declaration of femicide as a national pandemic?
Yes, we are still calling for that, and we are still calling for also inclusion of femicide on the penal code.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to end this. 30 minutes each, your closing remarks. Who wants to go first?
Can I go first?
Sure.
I'm going to speak. The data shows that the number of women who are dying are between the ages of 20 or 18 to around 30. These are women in university. I'm going to speak to the women who are facing violence right now, because before you die, you're facing violence. These are the things that you need to look out for to be able to ensure that you're protecting yourself. Look out for, does somebody feel entitled to your money? Does somebody feel entitled to your affection, to your time, to your body? Are you actually threatened by violence? Are you being threatened by violence and things by, I'm going to kill you one day? Look out for things like that. Do you feel threatened by, do you feel that the person is threatening you by their success? Are they threatened by your success? Do you have a new job? Do you have a new promotion? Do you have a new degree? Are they chipping away at your self-esteem? Are they chipping away at your confidence, saying things like, no one will love you? Do they abuse you in other ways, that is emotionally, sexually, financially? Are they incapable of taking no for an answer? Do they try to isolate you from your friends and family? And then remember, please do remember that women and girls are killed mostly by people who know them. It's not a stranger.
Right. Melvin, 30 seconds, your closing remarks.
So for this, it's an intervention that Young Women's Leadership Institute, we are doing. It's a campaign called My Dear Body Campaign. I've carried this with me. So this is a call to action for all the stakeholders, the public, the media, the policymakers, the community.
All stakeholders.
Yes, we are calling upon them to have this conversation. We want to have this conversation with you. We want to understand where is the gap and how can we work together to end femicide.
Right. Kefa, you get the last say?
Protection Against Domestic Violence Act of 2015 if every woman is to read that act, probably we are going to reduce this by almost 60%. It covers all the protection ways from the domestic violence that women can have to prevent this, because it's always a process. If they read that act and try to implement what is there, we will not get here.
And you promise to come when we have a conversation on Androcide?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll keep it to your word. Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Audrey Mugeni, co-founder Femicide Count Kenya, Melvin Obola, Women Human Rights Defender, Program Lead and Digital Advocacy Associate at Young Women's Leadership Institute, that is YWLI, and of course Mr. Kefa Ojuju there, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Thank you so much for your time and valuable contributions. So this has been To The Point, and we thank you so much for your time, for viewing, for your company. Special thanks to the entire crew that made this production a success. Thank you for staying with us up to this late 10:30 p.m. here. My name is Grace Courier. Do have yourselves a blessed night and a lovely week ahead.